Ever felt that familiar knot in your stomach? You know, when you absolutely have to say something, but you have no idea how to begin without making everything spectacularly worse.
Oh, definitely. We've all been there.
Those moments of a difficult family discussion, maybe, or a tense work meeting, or just that really uncomfortable conversation with a friend. It's that feeling where your gut reaction is either to completely avoid the conversation, you know, hoping it'll magically disappear.
Right, the ostrich approach.
Exactly. Or you feel this overwhelming urge to just blow up and say things you instantly regret.
Yeah, and then you're dealing with the fallout from that.
We've all been there. It's a universal challenge, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and you're spot on. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into a book that makes a really bold, almost revolutionary claim.
Oh, yeah.
It says the root cause of so many human problems, I mean, from organizational performance all the way down to personal well-being, often lies precisely in how we navigate these specific moments.
Which moments are those exactly?
These are the moments when opinions differ, the stakes are undeniably high, and emotions run incredibly strong.
Gotcha. High stakes, different views, strong feelings, the trifecta.
Exactly. And our mission in this deep dive is to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge and, maybe more importantly, truly practical, immediately implementable strategies from the renowned book Crucial Conversations.
Okay.
Think of it as your direct shortcut to being truly well-informed, not just about the theory, but about how to actually do this, how to navigate those high-stakes emotional discussions with, well, surprising effectiveness.
So we're talking about lessons that aren't just theoretical. They are incredibly practical and genuinely implementable, like stuff you can use tomorrow.
Precisely. They have the profound potential to transform both your personal relationships and your professional life.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So what's the plan?
We're going to really unpack what defines a crucial conversation, delve into the fascinating psychological reasons we so often stumble and, frankly, fail. And most importantly, lay out the step-by-step learnable skills that empower us to handle them with grace, genuine effectiveness, and a truly strategic approach.
Learnable skills. That's key. So let's jump right in. #1. What's a crucial conversation and why do we handle them poorly? So let's establish a common understanding first. What exactly is a crucial conversation? The book boils it down to 3 key elements.
Okay.
First, there are high stakes. The outcome isn't trivial. It significantly impacts important aspects of your life or your work. Could be a relationship on the line, a career move, a big financial decision.
Right, something that really matters.
Second, you're dealing with differing opinions. You and the other person just don't see eye to eye on the content or the best approach or maybe even the ultimate solution.
Yeah, disagreement is central.
And third, maybe the most potent element, there are strong emotions. Feelings are intense, and they can very easily hijack rational thought, leaving you feeling truly stuck.
That hijack is real.
You feel caught between wanting to speak your truth and fearing the negative fallout if you do. Like, there's simply no good path forward.
And what's truly fascinating here, from a biological perspective, is how our ancient survival instincts conspire against us in these moments.
How so?
Well, when a conversation turns crucial, our bodies react as if we're facing a physical threat. Seriously. Adrenaline floods our bloodstream.
Fight or flight kicks in.
Exactly. Blood gets diverted from the higher-level reasoning parts of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, handling thoughtful decisions, empathy, logic, straight to the large muscles in our arms and legs.
So we're ready to punch or run, not talk?
Pretty much. We're literally preparing to fight or flee like we're facing a saber-toothed tiger, not trying to have a careful dialogue with our boss or a colleague or, a loved one.
Wow.
The authors vividly describe this state as facing challenging conversations with the intellectual equipment available to a rodent.
Ouch. Okay, that explains a lot about things I've regretted saying.
It's no wonder we often say and do things we later regret. Right. Your brain's just not optimized for nuance at that point.
And it's not just the immediate biology, is it? There's also the intense pressure of doing this in real time.
Absolutely. These crucial moments often seem to come out of nowhere. They catch you completely by surprise.
Right. No time to prep.
None. You're forced to conduct this incredibly complex interaction without any preparation, no external help, no time out to consult your team of international diplomats.
No. Yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
It's just you, the issue, the other person, and a brain that's literally swimming in adrenaline and almost incapable of clear, rational thought.
So it's a little wonder we often say and do things that make perfect sense in the heat of the moment, but later on, we just shake our heads and think, what was I thinking?
When the more accurate question might be, what part of my brain was I thinking with? Or maybe, what part wasn't?
Right, and this leads to problems compounding, doesn't it?
It often traps us in what the book calls self-defeating loops. When we mishandle crucial conversations, maybe through silence or violence, we frequently create and perpetuate the very problems we desperately want to avoid.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. Take the classic example of Terry, the roommate, who keeps wearing your clothes without asking. You're annoyed, obviously, but instead of talking to him, you badmouth him behind his back to other friends.
Okay, common scenario.
Then one day he overhears you. He's embarrassed, maybe angry, and so he starts avoiding you. And now, maybe out of spite or just escalating frustration, he begins wearing your clothes even more.
Yeah.
Eating your food, using your laptop.
Oh, no.
Your agitated silence, your choice to avoid direct dialogue, actually created and escalated the very behaviors you despised.
Wow. So my avoidance actually made it worse.
Precisely. It's a powerful illustration of how our inaction, our silence, can really fuel a fire.
It's like we get caught in this unhealthy echo chamber where our silence, or maybe our outbursts, actually feed the exact behavior we don't want to see. It becomes this destructive, almost predictable dance.
Exactly.
Or think about that project team example from the book, dealing with subtle gender bias. A woman on the team notices that when men offer ideas, the project manager responds positively. Good comment, thoughtful nod.
Okay.
But when she or another woman offers an idea, he rarely makes eye contact, just gives a soft, okay. After the first time, she's curious but doesn't say anything, fears offending him early on.
Understandable hesitation.
After the second time, she's convinced it's a pattern. By the 8th time, she feels this hot rage just seething inside.
Building up.
Meanwhile, the manager notices her, sullen seething, and completely misinterprets it as disrespect. He doesn't talk to her about it either.
So he nurses his own story.
Exactly. He nurses it into a full-fledged indictment. He starts avoiding looking her way, takes her comments as personal attacks. Both are caught in this unhealthy, self-defeating loop of silence and misinterpretation.
It's painful just hearing about it because it feels so familiar.
So what does breaking out of these kinds of loops really mean for us personally and professionally? What are the upsides?
Well, the ability to navigate these crucial moments, isn't just about individual well-being. It's about the very fabric and effectiveness of organizations and, frankly, society at large.
How so?
The authors cite research across 17 different organizations that identified these opinion leaders, people admired specifically for their ability to effectively raise emotionally and politically risky issues.
The Kevins of the world.
Exactly. These are the people who shrunk the lag time, that gap, that procrastination in addressing tough issues that just builds resentment and alienation over time.
Okay, so they address things faster.
Yes, and they had this almost magical ability to express controversial opinions in a way that actually got heard without making others defensive or angry.
That's the holy grail, isn't it?
It really is. And the profound insight the authors uncovered was that the only way to really strengthen relationships is through the truth, not around it. You have to go through the difficult stuff, not avoid it.
And the benefits go beyond just individual careers, right? You mentioned organizations.
Absolutely. Study after study directly links mastering crucial conversations to key performance indicators impacting core business outcomes.
Like what?
Well, think about the sobering statistic of nearly 22,000 hospital deaths annually in the U.S. just from human error.
Wow.
A significant underlying part of this problem is that healthcare professionals are often afraid to speak their minds.
Because of hierarchy or fear?
Exactly. The book shares a shocking case where no fewer than 7 people at different points wondered why a surgeon was operating on a patient's foot instead of their tonsils, but said nothing.
7 people? That's unbelievable.
Imagine the collective stupidity, the authors call it. That can arise when individually smart people withhold vital meaning simply due to fear.
That's terrifying.
But conversely, when people do learn to speak up effectively, nuclear power plants become safer, workplaces become more inclusive, financial services firms gain greater customer loyalty, and yes, hospitals save more lives.
So it has huge systemic impact.
Huge. And beyond the professional, it has profound impacts on your personal health and relationships too.
Really? Health.
Yes. Research consistently shows that couples who converse well stay together longer and report higher levels of happiness.
Yeah.
And strong relationships, fostered by open dialogue, have even been scientifically shown to improve the immune system.
That's incredible.
We've heard truly compelling anecdotes from readers who've applied these skills.
Yeah.
A woman who reunited with her estranged father after years of just alienation. A nurse who saved a patient's life by courageously confronting a defensive doctor. A man who skillfully avoided a huge family rift over a will. Two brothers who broke a decade of silence by finally addressing a core, unspoken issue between them.
Amazing stories.
There's even an almost unbelievable story of a reader who credited these skills with saving her life during a carjacking in Brazil.
Seriously, how?
By staying calm, creating a connection, finding mutual purpose even in that extreme situation. It's incredible.
These aren't just inspiring anecdotes. They're powerful examples of how choosing dialogue over silence or violence can literally change the trajectory of our lives.
Exactly. It's about influencing virtually every domain of our lives with one set of high-leverage, incredibly practical skills.
The more you implement these, the more you build that muscle for profound impact.
So after 3 decades of really rigorous research, the authors made this truly startling discovery. They identified the common fool's choice.
The fool's choice, what's that?
It's that pervasive false dilemma that traps us, forcing us to choose between telling the truth or, getting what we want and keeping a friend or preserving the relationship. It feels like an either.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to feeling stuck there. Speak up and risk the relationship, or stay quiet and, resent it.
Precisely. But what they found were these opinion leaders who simply refused to accept this false choice. They consistently found a third way.
Right, like the story of Kevin in the book, in that meeting about the new office location.
Exactly. The CEO, Chris, is subtly using his power to push an unpopular, potentially disastrous option, locating the office in his hometown.
And everyone else just clams up.
Total silence. Clearly uncomfortable. But Kevin speaks up. His words are simple, almost casual. Hey, Chris, can I check something out with you?
You could hear a pin drop, I bet.
The room literally stops breathing. Kevin then calmly but directly calls out Chris for violating his own previously established decision-making guidelines, for subtly using his power in a way that shut down honest discussion.
Gutsy move.
Very. But what's truly remarkable is that he achieved absolute candor while simultaneously showing deep respect for Chris.
He managed both.
And the result?
Chris actually acknowledged his error. The team went on to choose a far more effective location, and Kevin's boss later praised his caring coaching.
Wow, that's incredible. It shows it is possible.
It's a fantastic testament to refusing that false choice.
Yeah.
Kevin wasn't necessarily smarter than his colleagues. Almost everyone saw what was happening. But he alone refused the fool's choice, and that's the core of mastering these conversations.
So this raises the big question. What did Kevin do that was so different? How did he pull that off?
He understood that true influence doesn't come from choosing one bad alternative over another, but from consistently seeking that third way, a path of dialogue, where honesty and respect not only coexist, but actually reinforce each other.
So it's not honesty versus respect, it's honesty and respect.
Exactly. He looked for a way to be 100% honest and 100% respectful at the same time. It's about finding the and. Okay, so how do these masters of dialogue actually achieve this and? What's the mechanism?
It all revolves around a core concept. The book calls the pool of shared meaning.
Pool of shared meaning.
Yeah. Imagine that each of us enters a conversation with our own unique pool of meaning, our individual thoughts, feelings, personal history related to the topic. It's everything we bring to the table.
Okay.
Dialogue, in its purest form, is a condition where meaning flows freely from everyone's individual pools into a shared pool of understanding. It's like everyone pouring their insights into a common container.
I like that visual.
And skilled communicators are masters at making it safe for everyone to add their ideas to this shared pool, even those ideas that might seem controversial or initially maybe even sound wrong.
They make it safe to contribute, basically.
Precisely. And the benefits of building a rich, deep shared pool are truly profound. First, you get better decisions.
Makes sense. More info, better choices.
Exactly. As individuals are exposed to more accurate and relevant information, all those diverse perspectives and facts, they naturally make smarter, more informed choices. The authors put it powerfully. The pool of shared meaning is a measure of a group's IQ. The larger the shared pool, the smarter the decisions.
Wow. A group's IQ. That's interesting.
Think back to that hospital tragedy we mentioned. 7 people saw the surgeon operating on the wrong body part but said nothing.
Right, the foot instead of the tonsils. Chilling.
That's not just a mistake. It's a tragically shallow shared pool, leading to a collectively stupid, and in that case, fatal outcome, because vital meaning was withheld.
Okay, so better decisions is one benefit. What else?
Second, and equally important, is stronger commitment to action.
Ah, the buy-in factor.
Totally. When people genuinely understand the whys and wherefores of different proposals and truly contribute their ideas to the discussion, they buy into the final decision in a deeply authentic way.
They feel ownership.
Exactly. As Samuel Butler wisely observed centuries ago, "He that complies against his will is of his own opinion still." People commit because they understand and help shape the decision, not just because they were involved, or worse, told what to do.
Yeah, forced compliance doesn't last. So when people withhold meaning due to fear, when that pool stays shallow, even individually smart people can do collectively stupid things.
That's the danger. And this inevitably leads to quiet criticism, passive resistance, and ultimately undermines results, often without anyone even knowing why.
It just kind of fizzles out.
Right. So if we want synergy, truly better decisions, and genuine commitment, we need to actively make it safe for everyone to throw their ideas, even the controversial ones, into that shared pool.
But the big question is, how do we actually do that in the heat of a crucial moment when our brains are screaming fight or flight and everything feels unsafe?
That's precisely what the book's roadmap addresses. It lays out a clear, logical progression of skills that build upon each other, almost like building a pyramid.
Okay, a roadmap. I like that.
Part 1. What to do. Before you open your mouth, focuses on the crucial internal preparatory work, getting our heads and hearts in the right place before we even utter a word.
The 70% you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. This involves clarifying the right topic, aligning your motives, and mastering your own emotions. Then, part 2. How to open your mouth focuses on the outward. Tactical skills, how to skillfully engage in dialogue, speak persuasively without being abrasive, listen effectively, and manage feedback from others.
The actual talking part.
Right. And finally, part 3. How to finish brings conversations to successful conclusions, moving from deep dialogue to concrete action and ensuring those results actually stick.
Making it happen.
This structure isn't arbitrary. It's designed to help us build competence incrementally, starting with our internal state because that's where most of the leverage is. It's truly like building a muscle, one intentional, focused repetition at a time.
Okay, let's unpack this foundational idea. That core insight from the book, that 70% of the success of a crucial conversation happens in your head, not through your mouth. That really hit me.
It's huge, isn't it?
It means that mastering your internal states and intentions is the fundamental prerequisite for effective communication. It's a powerful thought. No amount of clever technique or perfect phrasing can compensate if your head just isn't in the right place.
You got it. The foundation has to be solid.
So, before we even think about what to say, we absolutely need to get our own house in order. Because if our internal state isn't right, the words might flow, but the results just won't be what we hope for. They might even backfire.
Right. Garbage in, garbage out, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first piece of that inner work is choosing the right topic. And one of the biggest, most common mistakes we make is simply assuming that just because we're talking, we're actually addressing the right problem.
Motion versus progress.
Exactly. This often leads to endless, repetitive, and ultimately unresolved conversations, what the authors call déjà vu dialogue. You feel like you're having the same fight over and over.
Been there. So why do we pick the wrong topic?
Usually for a couple of reasons, typically driven by our desire to avoid discomfort. First, we choose easy over hard.
The path of least resistance.
Right. When faced with a high-stakes, emotional conversation, our instinct is often to pick a less threatening, easier-to-win issue, rather than tackling the true high-stakes problem head-on.
Like focusing on a typo when the real issue is the whole report strategy is flawed.
Perfect example. Or say you've concluded your direct report is incompetent. Instead of addressing that, you might sugarcoat it by discussing minor mistakes, hoping they'll somehow infer the larger issue, which, as you might guess, rarely works.
No, people usually don't get the hint.
And the second trap is choosing recent over right. We tend to focus on the most recent event rather than the underlying ongoing pattern.
Okay, explain that.
If a colleague consistently disrespects your comments in meetings, you might talk about the most recent slight, saying, "Hey, you started talking over me in there," and they'll shrug, "Sorry, got enthusiastic."
Right, but that's not the real problem.
Exactly. Inside, you're thinking, "You do that all the time, you self-centered jerk." But you only address the latest instance. We favor talking about the recent event because, well, we remember the specifics clearly, and we don't want to be accused of dredging up ancient history.
Yeah, nobody wants to hear "you always" or "you never."
Right. So falling into these traps leads to predictable and deeply frustrating results. The book identifies 3 crucial warning signs, your internal yellow lights, that tell you you're probably having the wrong conversation.
Okay, what are they?
First, your emotions escalate. Even if the surface conversation seems fine, you know on some level that you're not addressing the real issue, and your internal frustration or anger just keeps building and building.
Like that Wendy example talking about deadlines but feeling fear about her job.
Exactly. That escalating emotion was a clear signal. The issue was no longer just the deadline. Something far more fundamental needed to be addressed. Second, you walk away skeptical.
You make an agreement, but you don't really believe it'll stick.
Precisely. You reach an agreement, but you instinctively doubt anything will genuinely change. It just feels like window dressing. And third, you're stuck in a déjà vu dialogue.
Having the same argument again and again.
If you find yourself having the exact same conversation with the same people a second, third, or even 12th time, that's a screaming indicator. The problem isn't necessarily them. It's that you're having the wrong conversation.
Like the realtor and the late desk clerk.
Perfect example. These warning signs are your cue to pause and ask yourself, okay, wait, what's the real issue here? It's all about becoming a master at noticing these subtle internal cues.
So how do we find the right topic and break free from these cycles?
The book offers a really powerful framework called CPR. Instead of just talking about the obvious content, a single immediate event like you drank too much at the luncheon, you need to look deeper.
C is for content. What are P and R?
P is for pattern. Is it a pattern of repeated behavior or broken promises? Like, this is the second time this has occurred. I'm concerned that I can't count on you to keep a promise. Addressing the pattern is crucial for avoiding those Groundhog Day scenarios where the same problem just keeps recurring.
Okay. Content, pattern. R must be relationship.
You got it. R is for relationship. Is it really about the impact on the interpersonal connection itself, often related to trust and respect? Things like, you're taking advantage of our friendship, or I'm starting to feel like you don't trust me. These deeper issues are often the true roots of recurring problems, hidden beneath the surface content issue.
That makes sense. Sometimes the argument isn't about the dishes, it's about feeling respected or supported.
Exactly. And sometimes the issue isn't what is being discussed, C, P, or R, but how the discussion itself is unfolding.
Yeah.
You need to talk about the process.
How the conversation is happening.
Right. The book gives that compelling example of Kayla, the senior leader, giving feedback to her assistant, April. Despite Kayla's skilled delivery, April always became defensive. The core problem wasn't the feedback content, but the process of how feedback was delivered and received. Kayla wisely made the process the topic, leading to concrete agreements on how to communicate feedback in a way April could actually hear and internalize.
So they talked about how they talk.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
And this kind of explicit process conversation is even more critical in virtual communication, where we miss so many nonverbal cues. You need to explicitly discuss things like how everyone will get a chance to speak, how to accommodate different time zones, or what tools to use.
Because otherwise things get missed or misinterpreted.
Right, because, as the book powerfully warns, if you don't talk it out, you'll act it out. Misunderstandings fester.
Okay, so you use CPR, consider the process. How do you land on the one topic?
Once you've unbundled these layers using CPR, the next step is to choose. You filter all the potential issues through one critical question. What do I really want?
Back to the core motive.
Always. This helps you prioritize the most relevant issue. If you really just want to solve a specific customer problem, you address the content. If the deeper issue is about a breakdown in trust, you absolutely must address the relationship.
Got it.
And then you need to simplify. Condense your chosen topic into a single, succinct problem statement. This provides clarity and focus for the actual conversation.
Like boiling it down to one sentence.
Exactly. Instead of rambling, a skilled person might crystallize it as, my concern is that I've concluded he is not good at managing people or projects. The book stresses the importance of brutal self-honesty at this stage. Before you even worry about how you're going to deliver the message, nail the what first.
Okay, but what if the other person tries to shift the topic? That happens all the time.
A crucial word of warning there. Be incredibly alert to topic shifts. The book uses that perfect dandelion analogy. Content issues are like the bright yellow flower. They're obvious and easy to pluck.
Yeah, you see the flower first.
But the problem, the real root, the pattern or relationship issue will simply resurface and multiply if it's not addressed.
Yeah.
You just keep getting more dandelions.
So you have to pull the root.
Exactly. What often happens is that others, sometimes unintentionally, will try to shift the topic back to the easy content when you try to address a deeper pattern or relationship issue.
Deflection.
Often. For instance, if you confront a graphic designer about a pattern of stale creative output over 6 months, he might deflect by talking about a content issue. Well, the Johnson Project was really challenging because,
Right, focusing on the last instance.
as the speaker, you have to consciously steer back to the pattern, maybe by saying something like, I hear you on the Johnson Project specifics, but I'm less concerned with that right now than I am with the overall pattern I'm seeing. I'm wondering if there's something bigger going on here. You have to hold the focus.
And what if a new, genuinely important topic comes up mid-conversation?
Great question. If a new, important topic legitimately arises, it's vital to place a bookmark. Acknowledge it explicitly. Make a conscious choice to shift to the new topic for a moment and then explicitly bookmark the original issue to return to later.
So you don't lose track.
Exactly. As the book states, never allow the conversation to shift or the topic to change without acknowledging you've done it. This brings us back to Wendy, our project manager.
Right, with her manager Sandrine.
When Sandrine made those veiled threats about Wendy's team player reputation, Wendy wisely bookmarked the project timeline discussion, the original content issue.
Okay.
She then skillfully shifted the conversation to the relationship level, stating her simple, clear problem sentence. This is about whether I can trust our process and trust you.
Powerful.
She expressed her commitment to getting things done, but also her need to set realistic goals and work upfront with each other about our needs and concerns. This subtle but powerful shift, addressing the real issue, was the start of a much better working relationship.
It really highlights how choosing the right topic and staying focused on it, even when it gets uncomfortable, can entirely change the dynamic.
It's the foundation.
Okay, choosing the topic is step 1 of the inner work. Step 2 is start with heart. This is where the real inner game begins, and it's truly fascinating.
It really is. The core principle here is that when you're under pressure and strong opinions are flying, your motives can subtly, almost unconsciously, shift.
Shift how?
You might start out genuinely wanting to achieve a positive result, wanting to add to that shared pool of meaning we talked about.
Right, good intentions.
But then, under stress, you can unconsciously pivot. You might suddenly just want to win the argument, or save face, or keep the peace at all costs, or even sometimes punish the other person.
Ooh, yeah. The winning motive is strong.
It is. And this internal shift happens faster than you often realize.
The book has that great example of Greta, the CEO, right?
Yes. In that tense cost-cutting meeting, a manager bravely questions her spending on a second, seemingly unnecessary office amidst company-wide cuts.
Risky move, questioning the CEO.
Very. And Greta's initial reaction is visceral. Her jaw tightens, knuckles turn white, her finger points like a loaded weapon. In that instant, her motive shifts from effective cost-cutting to pure getting revenge. She wants to put that guy in his place.
I can picture it.
Her instinct was to lash out, to teach the moron not to attack me in public. But then she does something truly remarkable.
What did she do?
You can almost see her physically recovering. Her finger drops, her face relaxes. She takes a deep breath and says, "Thank you for taking that risk. I appreciate the trust it shows in me."
Wow. Complete turnaround.
Complete. She then honestly acknowledges the apparent hypocrisy, commits to checking the costs, explains the marketing purpose, admits she has not managed this project as tightly, and commits to cutting costs by half or canceling it entirely.
And that changed everything.
It transformed the company's entire attitude towards cost-cutting because she modeled openness and accountability. The underlying question is, how did she move so quickly from wanting to humiliate the questioner to sincerely soliciting feedback and admitting her own oversight?
How did she do that?
It all comes down to actively refocusing your brain in that crucial moment. The first step is to become intensely aware of your acting motive.
What you're actually doing.
Right. You need to step back from the interaction, almost like you're an outsider looking in at yourself.
Yeah.
Ask, what am I acting like I want right now? Am I cutting people off? Am I overstating my points? Shaking my head dismissively.
Uh-oh.
If so, you've probably shifted from achieving a shared goal to just winning an argument, even if you don't consciously realize it.
Okay, so recognize the acting motive. Then what?
Then, once you humbly acknowledge a hurtful motive might be creeping in, the fastest way to free yourself from it is to simply admit you have it. Just internally acknowledge, Okay, I'm trying to win here.
Name it to tame it.
Exactly. When you name the game, you can stop playing it. It's incredibly liberating. Then, to consciously choose healthier, more productive motives, ask yourself those 3 guiding questions, almost like a mantra.
Okay, what are they again?
What do I really want for me? What do I really want for others? And what do I really want for the relationship? Asking these refocuses you on the bigger picture.
Me, others, relationship. Okay, and here's the kicker, right? The real power play you mentioned.
Yes. Go beyond that common fool's choice by combining these desired outcomes into a complex and question.
The and question.
This forces your brain to search for more creative and productive options than just silence or violence. Instead of agonizing, should I tell the truth or keep the peace? You ask, how can I tell the truth and keep the peace? Or how can we have a candid conversation and strengthen our relationships?
So you're not choosing between them, but aiming for both.
Precisely. Our brain, when challenged with a more complex problem than just fight or flight, will often surprise us by actually finding a way to share concerns, listen sincerely, and build the relationship all at the same time.
Even though it feels impossible sometimes?
It often does. Many people are skeptical, believing fool's choices are unavoidable. But the authors challenge this by asking, are you saying there isn't anyone you know who is able to hold a high-risk conversation in a way that solves problems and builds relationships?
And the answer is usually, yeah, I can think of someone.
Almost universally, yes. Which proves that a third option, the path of dialogue where you achieve both, genuinely exists. It's possible.
Okay, topic chosen, heart checked. The third piece of inner work is master my stories. We've all heard or even said, he made me mad, as if our emotions are purely external forces acting upon us.
Right, like we're just puppets.
Think about your mother-in-law walking in and immediately starting to tidy up your house, and you just get absolutely ticked off. Your spouse might wisely ask, does she drive you nuts, or do you? The book powerfully challenges this common assumption.
How?
By showing that different people react entirely differently to the exact same stimulus. This proves our emotions aren't solely caused by others or by external events. There's something else happening.
And this is where the concept of the path to action comes in. It's a foundational insight for mastering your emotions.
Path to action.
Yes. Between what others do, what we see or hear, and how we feel, there's a crucial, lightning-fast intermediate step. We tell ourselves a story.
Ah, the story we create about what happened.
Exactly. Our stories are our interpretations of the facts, our guesses at the other person's motives, and our instant judgments whether something is good or bad. Our emotions directly and immediately stem from these stories we tell ourselves.
That explains why 10 people can see the same thing and feel 10 different ways.
Precisely. Take Maria observing her colleague Louis dominating a presentation they were supposed to share. She sees his actions, the facts. Then she tells herself a story. He doesn't trust my ability. He thinks they'll listen more to a man. He's trying to hog the spotlight. He's a sexist, power-hungry weasel.
Okay, that's quite a story.
Right. And this specific story directly leads to her feelings of anger and frustration, which then drive her actions. She either clams up in the meeting or takes cheap shots at him later. The story created the feeling, which drove the action.
So the leverage point then is crystal clear. Since we and only we are telling the story, we can take back control of our own emotions by telling a different story.
That's the power. If we can fundamentally change our stories, the interpretations we layer onto events, we can master our emotions and consequently master our crucial conversations.
It's like an internal superpower.
It really is. And why does mastering stories matter beyond just feeling better? First, it's about changing your results. If you want different results from your crucial conversations, you need different emotions. To get different emotions, you need to act differently. And to act differently, you absolutely must master your story first. It's the starting point.
Okay, what else?
Second, it's about taking ownership. Mastering stories is not about letting someone else off the hook for their bad behavior, let's be clear.
Right, it's not about making excuses for them.
Not at all. Instead, it's the absolutely essential first step toward addressing that behavior through dialogue, by taking ownership of the emotional energy you bring to the conversation. You cleaned up your side first.
And third?
Third, it helps you avoid self-created reality. Be careful not to let your story actually create the very reality you claim to be describing.
What do you mean?
Consider Joseph coming home, hearing the phone ring. He knew he should focus on his wife Celia, who was waiting for him, but he answered the call anyway. He then told himself a story justifying his behavior, turning Celia into a villain. She is so unappreciative. and himself into an innocent victim. I've been working hard all week and deserve understanding. He unwittingly became a full partner in the downward spiral of their relationship because his story justified his actions, which then likely provoked a negative reaction from her, confirming his story. See the loop.
Yeah, wow, that's a dangerous cycle. So how do we master our stories when they happen so incredibly fast? It feels automatic sometimes.
It does feel automatic. The book suggests a kind of mental gymnastics to retrace your past action. This technique helps slow down that lightning-quick storytelling process, allowing you to regain control and consciously choose your response.
Mental gymnastics. Okay, how does it work?
The book outlines 4 practical steps. First, act. Notice your behavior. Step back and objectively ask, am I acting out my concerns rather than talking them out? How would a disinterested third party describe your actions right now? Are you raising your voice, going silent? If you're rationalizing aggressive behavior as a necessary tactic, you won't even see the need to change.
So observe your own actions first. Got it.
Second, feel. Put your feelings into words. Go beyond vague terms like bad or angry. Precisely articulate your emotions. Are you really angry, or are you maybe embarrassed and surprised, or humiliated and hurt? Naming the specific emotion creates daylight between you and the emotion, giving you more power over it.
Be specific about the feeling.
Okay. Third, tell story. Analyze your stories. Ask yourself, what story is creating these emotions? And crucially, challenge the comfortable, often automatic conclusion that your story is the only right or true one. Realize that any set of facts can lead to an infinite number of stories.
So question my own interpretation.
Yes. For Maria, what if Louis just got a bad performance review for not speaking up enough in meetings, and that's why he was dominating? This alternative story immediately changes her emotional response, doesn't it?
Yeah, it shifts from malicious intent to maybe desperation or awkwardness.
Right. And fourth, and arguably the most critical step, see here, get back to the facts. You must consciously separate your subjective conclusions, your stories, from objective, verifiable observations, the pure facts.
Facts versus story.
Ask yourself, can you actually see or hear this thing you're calling a fact? Was it an actual observable behavior? For Louis' presentation, Louis covered 10 of the slides we previously agreed I would cover. When questions were asked, he answered all of them. Those are specific objective facts.
Yep.
Versus, Louis violated our plan, stole my slides, and forced me to the sidelines. That's your story, your conclusion built on the facts.
Big difference.
Huge. Also, actively look for facts that might contradict your current story, not just reinforce it. Did Louis praise Maria's work last week? Does he work well with another female colleague? This act of looking for disconfirming evidence is what truly liberates yourself from the need to defend your story.
That's hard, looking for evidence against your own theory.
It is, but it's essential for objectivity. And as you learn to question your stories, the book points out 3 particularly insidious, clever stories that we often tell ourselves.
Clever stories.
Yes, they're imaginative, self-serving concoctions that allow us to feel good about behaving badly while ironically achieving abysmal results.
Okay, what are these clever stories?
The first is victim stories. It's not my fault. We intentionally ignore our own role in the problem, portraying ourselves as innocent sufferers. We emphasize our noble motives and then believe we're being punished for our virtues.
Like complaining about your boss removing you from a project, but conveniently leaving out that you failed to inform him you were way behind schedule.
Exactly. Your actual role there is often silent complicity, but the story focuses only on how you were wronged. The second is villain stories. It's all your fault.
Making the other person the bad guy.
Right. We turn normal, reasonable people into evil, incompetent villains by imputing bad motives and exaggerating their flaws. We often dehumanize them with labels like bonehead or control freak. If your boss is simply zealous about quality control, you label her a control freak, even if her underlying intention is good.
I can see how that happens. And the third?
The third is helpless stories. There's nothing else I can do. We conclude that we're completely powerless to act differently, believing circumstances or other people make the problem insoluble.
Like saying, have you ever tried to talk to that guy? He's a maniac. There's just no point.
Precisely. We tell these clever stories because while they sometimes might contain a grain of truth, more often, they conveniently excuse us from any responsibility when we've actually been partially responsible for the situation.
They let us off the hook.
Exactly. And the authors argue they typically start with sellouts, moments when we consciously act against our own sense of what's right. We do something small we know we shouldn't, and then we immediately formulate a clever story to justify our behavior.
Like what?
Think about knowing you should let a car merge in traffic, but choosing not to, then immediately justifying it by thinking, he can't just crowd in on me like that. What a jerk. You make him the villain to excuse your behavior.
Okay. Or knowing you should help a new team member, but instead getting annoyed, giving curt answers, avoiding them, and then complaining to others about their lack of initiative.
Perfect example. You sold out your value of helpfulness, then created a story. They're incompetent, demanding, to feel okay about it.
So how do we transform these clever stories? How do we break free?
The book suggests specific questions to challenge each type. To counter victim stories, ask, what am I pretending not to notice about my own role in this problem? This forces recognition of your contribution, even if it was just a thoughtless omission or, as we said, silent complicity.
Okay, find my part.
To counter villain stories, ask, why would a reasonable, rational, and decent person do what this person is doing? This humanizes the other person, forcing you to consider alternative motives beyond pure evil, which softens your emotions and fosters empathy. That coworker helping you might genuinely want to help, not discredit you.
Assume good intent, or at least understandable intent.
Right. And to counter helpless stories, return to your original desired motives by asking, what do I really want? For me, for others, for the relationship. Then, critically, break free of the fool's choice by asking, what should I do right now to move toward what I really want? This reconnects you to your agency.
Back to finding the and.
Always. This whole process is really the essence of emotional intelligence. By taking control of our stories, we take ownership of our emotions. And that's the ultimate leverage point for changing the outcomes of our crucial conversations.
You shift from being reactive to being a proactive architect of the solution.
Beautifully put.
Okay, we've done the incredibly important deep internal work. We've chosen the right topic using CPR. We've checked our hearts and motives, and we've mastered our own clever stories. Now we're finally ready to actually open our mouths.
Right, the action phase.
This next set of skills gives us the practical tools to actually navigate the conversation itself, even when it feels like we're walking into a conversational minefield. This is where you learn to translate all that inner clarity into outward, skillful action.
Let's dive in. So the very first step in active engagement is learning to truly see what's happening in the conversation in real time. The challenge here is that it's incredibly difficult to observe objectively when you're caught right in the middle of a stressful conversation.
Yeah, you're too busy reacting or planning your next sentence.
Exactly. The authors use a great analogy. It's like trying to spot a distorted image of a brown trout underwater with sun glare reflecting off the surface, rather than seeing the clear picture hanging on your wall.
So it's murky.
Very. You have to train yourself to look for signals beyond just the obvious content of the words being said. So what exactly do you look for?
Okay, what are the signs?
First, you need to notice when a conversation turns crucial. Identify those subtle flesh and blood cues that indicate the stakes have gone up, opinions are diverging sharply, and emotions are starting to rise.
Like a shift in tone or body language.
Exactly. The book shares that example from a steering committee meeting with Corinne, the CEO, and Marco, the CFO. Corinne kept interjecting after almost every comment, never letting the discussion flow. Marco then forcefully told her she was wrong. They pushed back and forth until Corinne tabled the discussion and Marco just stalked out.
Okay, classic breakdown.
But the crucial insight is that the warning signs started way before Marco's outburst. Corinne's constant interjections, Marco's use of absolutes like always or never, those were early signals. You need to spot these shifts early because that's your cue to intervene and restore safety before things blow up.
Got it. Spot the shift early. What's the most important thing to look for?
The most critical indicator, truly the foundational observation, is looking for signs that people don't feel safe. When that sense of psychological safety is lost, people immediately move away from healthy dialogue.
Why is safety so paramount?
Because, simply put, the book states, when it's safe, you can say anything. Fear, which is the root emotion behind all defensiveness, completely kills the free flow of meaning into that shared pool.
Okay.
People become defensive not primarily because of what you're saying, the content, but because they start to question why you're saying it. They doubt your underlying respect for them or your positive intent toward them.
It's the intent, not the content.
That's the core. When safety is compromised, people typically resort to one of two unproductive behaviors: silence or violence.
Okay, silence or violence. What does silence look like?
Silence is purposely withholding information from that shared pool of meaning. It's usually done to avoid problems, but it restricts meaning and basically suffocates dialogue. It should be subtle, like masking their true feelings with sarcasm.
Like, oh yeah, that'll work like a charm, while rolling their eyes.
Perfect example. Or they might outright avoid the sensitive subject, changing the topic entirely, or offering trivial suggestions to sidestep the real difficult issues.
Like talking about the weather when the project is failing.
Right. And sometimes they just withdraw completely from the conversation, either mentally checking out or physically leaving the room.
Right, that's okay. That's silence. What about violence?
Violence, in this context, isn't necessarily physical. It's trying to force your meaning into the shared pool to compel others to your point of view.
How does that show up?
It can manifest as controlling others, dominating the conversation, cutting people off, overstating facts, speaking in absolutes like everyone knows, or it's obvious that.
Making it hard for others to speak.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It can also be labeling, attaching a loaded, often negative term to people or ideas, like calling someone a control freak or dismissing an idea as stupid.
Name calling, basically.
Yeah. And in its most extreme form, it can be outright attacking winning by making the other person suffer through belittling, threatening, or bad-mouthing them. These are all clear signals that safety has been lost and dialogue has stopped.
And while you're looking for these signs in others, a truly crucial and maybe harder skill is to also look for your own style under stress.
Oh, yeah, the self-awareness piece.
This is perhaps the most difficult thing to do, objectively observing your own behavior in the heat of the moment, because you're, as the book says, on the wrong side of your eyeballs, totally immersed in the experience.
It's hard to see yourself clearly.
The book mentions Tommy, that engineer prone to blow-ups. He habitually pushed his views until others just went silent, which he mistakenly interpreted as agreement.
Big mistake.
Huge. His coworkers started avoiding him. He was eventually put on probation. Through taking the Crucial Conversations class, he had this breakthrough, realizing he paid no attention when interacting with others. I didn't notice when they went to silence or violence. Recognizing our own predictable behaviors under stress, whether it's clamming up like me sometimes or blowing up like Tom, is the first absolutely crucial step to changing them and regaining control.
And this challenge of observation is amplified even more when we're communicating virtually, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. Most virtual communication severely limits our data stream. We lose all those crucial nonverbals, body language, subtle shifts in tone, direct eye contact.
Yeah, you miss so much on email or even just audio.
So what's the solution then?
The book's advice is practical. When a crucial conversation is needed, prioritize the medium with the most bandwidth. Face-to-face is ideal, then video, then phone, and only then as a last resort, email or text.
Use the richest channel possible.
Right. And crucially, in virtual settings, you need to actively ask for more data when you sense silence or violence. You have to compensate for the missing cues.
Like how?
For example, in an email, you might explicitly write, "I haven't heard back from you on this, and I'm not sure how to interpret your silence. Could you share how you're feeling about the proposal?"
Just ask directly.
Or on the phone, I wish I could see your face right now. I don't know how you're hearing my message. Can you help me understand what you're thinking?"
Okay.
If they still don't disclose more, even after you ask clearly and safely, then that lack of response is its own confirming data. It signals that safety is indeed at risk, and it's time for the next step, actively making it safe.
Got it. Learn to look, especially for signs of lost safety, including in yourself and in virtual settings. So we've learned to look, we've identified when safety is at risk. Now the big question, how do we actually fix it? How do we make it safe again?
Here's the core insight for truly making it safe, and it builds on what we just discussed.
Yeah.
People rarely become defensive simply because of what you're saying, the content. They become defensive because of why they think you're saying it. They're questioning your intent or your respect for them.
So it comes back to intent.
Exactly. As the book puts it so simply and powerfully, safety in a conversation is about intent, not content.
Okay. So why do people feel unsafe then? What triggers that?
Generally, there are two reasons. One, sometimes you do actually have a bad intent toward them. Maybe you were trying to blame them or win at their expense. If that's the case, you absolutely must first go back and start with heart to genuinely align your motives before you can make it safe for them. You have to fix your own intent first.
Makes sense. What's the other reason?
The second reason, and far more commonly, is that they have simply misunderstood your good intent. You mean well, but they perceive threat or disrespect.
Ah, the misinterpretation problem.
Exactly. And this is where the doing nothing trad comes in. It's not enough to simply have good intentions. You must actively generate evidence that your intentions are good.
Show, don't just tell or think.
Right. Unconscious biases or even just subtle discomforts we might carry about others can send unintended signals, breaking eye contact, a slight frown, a dismissive tone that make others feel unsafe, even if we don't mean to.
Wow, okay.
The best communicators, unlike those who either ignore safety altogether or just sugarcoat their message into meaninglessness, understand this. They masterfully step out of the content of the conversation, make it safe, and then step back in. They don't play games. They know the problem won't actually get fixed without being talked about directly and safely.
Step out, make safe, step back in. I like that. So what does safety look like? What conditions need to exist?
The book identifies 2 critical conditions that must exist for safety to truly thrive in a crucial conversation. The first is mutual purpose.
Mutual purpose. What's that?
It's about whether others genuinely believe you care about their goals, interests, and concerns in this conversation. Do they trust your motives toward them?
Do they think you have their best interests at heart, at least partially?
Exactly. If Mari believes her partner Oba only wants to criticize her late hours, not genuinely improve their shared life together, their conversation is doomed from the start because the foundation of mutual purpose is missing.
Okay, mutual purpose. What's the second condition?
The second is mutual respect. Do others believe you honor their basic humanity, dignity, and worth as a person? Without this fundamental respect, dialogue is simply impossible. It's the bedrock.
And what happens when respect is violated?
Telltale signs are when emotions turn from fear or confusion to outright anger. That's when you see pouting, name-calling, yelling, threats, those more aggressive violence behaviors. Respect is non-negotiable for dialogue.
Well, what if you genuinely don't respect certain aspects of the person? Can you still create safety?
That's a common and really important question. The book offers a powerful counterintuitive insight. You don't need to respect every element of another person's character or behavior to have a respectful conversation with them.
Really, how does that work?
Instead, you need to find ways to honor their basic humanity. A powerful strategy to counter your own feelings of disrespect is to actively look for similarities.
Find common ground.
Yes. Counter those negative feelings by searching for shared experiences, common values, or even universal human weaknesses. The book shares that inspiring example from a manufacturing strike where union heads and managers, initially hostile, discovered they had nearly identical goals for the company: profitability, stable jobs, quality products.
Finding that shared goal shifted everything.
It completely restored mutual respect and replaced decades of silence and violence with dialogue. It proved that when we recognize that we all have weaknesses, it's easier to find a way to respect others. We connect on a human level.
Okay, so we need mutual purpose and mutual respect. Once we've identified that safety is at risk, what are the specific tools we use to restore it?
Great question. One of the simplest yet most powerful tools is to share your good intent right up front, proactively and explicitly stating your positive motives.
Don't make them guess.
Exactly. Remember, Oba and Mari, his initial attempt to talk about her late arrival failed because Mari immediately assumed he was attacking her. His second, more successful attempt started very differently. Mari, I'd like to talk about how much you're working and how it's impacting our relationship. I'm not bringing this up to criticize you or suggest the problem is yours. I know you're under tremendous pressure. I really just want to talk about what we can do to make things better for both of us.
That completely changes the tone. It builds a bridge.
It lays a foundation of safety from the very first sentence. Another incredibly powerful tool, maybe the single most useful one for restoring safety when intentions are misunderstood, is contrasting.
Contrasting, what is that?
It's essentially a don't-do statement. It's simple but brilliant in structure. First, you state what you don't intend. This directly addresses the misunderstanding or concern about your respect or perceived malicious purpose.
Okay, address the negative assumption first.
Right, that's key. Second, you state what you do intend. This clarifies your true positive purpose and demonstrates your respect.
Don't do. Give me an example.
For Oba, when Mari defensively asks, "Why are you always on my case?" He could respond using contrasting. Look, I don't want to criticize you or get on your case. That wasn't my intent at all, and I know you're carrying a huge load. What I do want is for us to be able to talk about our concerns with each other so we can address them together and actually build our relationship.
Ah, I see. The don't neutralizes the threat. The do states the positive goal.
Precisely. The don't part is arguably more important initially because it deals with the immediate misunderstanding that has killed safety. You can also use contrasting to provide context and proportion, clarifying if your message is maybe being perceived as bigger or worse than you intended.
Like, I don't think you're a bad employee. I do want to talk about being on time for this specific meeting.
Perfect. And a pro tip: use it preventatively at the start of a potentially difficult conversation to preempt misunderstandings before they even arise.
Okay, share a good intent, use contrasting.
Yeah.
What else?
You also need to actively commit to seek mutual purpose. This means consciously deciding to agree, temporarily suspending your belief that your initial choice or solution is the absolute best,
Being open.
and genuinely opening your mind to the possibility of a third choice, a different solution that genuinely suits everyone involved. And then you verbalize this commitment.
Say it out loud.
Yes, something like, look, it seems like we're both trying to force our view on each other right now. How about this? I commit to stay in this discussion until we find a solution that genuinely satisfies both of us. This simple statement immediately builds safety and actively encourages true dialogue, because now your partner is searching for a solution, not adversaries.
That lowers the defenses.
Hugely. And when you find yourself really stuck in an impasse, a brilliant strategy is to learn to recognize the purpose behind the strategy.
Purpose behind stress.
Separate what people are asking for, their chosen strategy, their position, like I want to go to a movie, from what they really want. Their underlying purpose or need, like I want quality time with you away from the kids.
Ah, the why behind the what.
Exactly. By separating these, new creative options can suddenly emerge that satisfy both underlying purposes. You can then say, okay, so if we can come up with something that involves quality time together and is quiet and away from the kids, we'll both be happy. Is that right?
Finding the deeper need.
Yes. And if your genuine wants truly seem incompatible, then you must actively work together to invent a mutual purpose by moving to more encompassing, higher-level goals that transcend the current conflict. For example, spouses disagreeing on a job promotion that requires a move might find common ground by agreeing that the needs of our relationship and the children come before individual career aspirations. That shared higher purpose guides the decision.
Find a bigger shared goal.
Right. Once safety is established through these steps and a shared purpose is clear, then you can collectively return to the content and brainstorm new strategies by suspending judgment and truly thinking outside the box for options that meet everyone's underlying needs.
So the brainstorming comes after safety and mutual purpose are established.
Absolutely. Otherwise, it just turns into a debate over positions.
Now, in virtual communication, where all those nonverbal safety cues are missing, the book recommends a powerful technique called write it twice.
Write it twice.
Yeah, especially for asynchronous stuff like email or text. First, you just write the message like you normally would to get your content across.
Oh.
Then you pause, you reread it slowly, actively imagining the other person's face and how they might feel as they read your words.
Put yourself in their shoes.
Exactly. Then you rewrite it with safety actively in mind, maybe adding a contrasting statement, clarifying what you don't and do intend. Like, hey, if you could see my face right now as I write this, you'd probably see the wrinkles in my worried forehead as I hope that my message isn't coming across as harsh or critical.
Explicitly adding the safety cues that are missing visually.
Precisely. This gives you a crucial second chance to build safety before you hit send, rather than regretting it afterward. It's a lifesaver for written communication.
That's really practical. Let's revisit Olba and Mari quickly to see these skills in action.
Okay.
Olba begins his second attempt with a powerful contrasting statement to share his good intent, making it clear he's not blaming her. When Mari still expresses some defensiveness, Olba doesn't argue. He immediately apologizes for his phrasing, uses contrasting again, and even admits his own contribution. I'm sorry I said it that way. I know I am, at least part of the problem.
Taking responsibility.
Yes. This consistent effort to create safety works. Mari finally opens up, admitting she sometimes pouts because she's overwhelmed and burned out, and honestly hopes it makes him feel bad.
Wow, that's vulnerable.
Totally. And the conversation shifts instantly from blame to exploring their shared purpose. Find some ways to get some of the load off my shoulders so that we can enjoy each other more, and then to brainstorming new, concrete strategies.
This is where it gets really transformative, isn't it? Creating safety doesn't magically resolve all issues, of course not, but it absolutely creates the essential space to give dialogue and real solutions a fighting chance.
It opens the door. It makes progress possible, where before there was only conflict or avoidance. It's the key that unlocks everything else.
Okay, so safety is established. We've built that foundation of mutual purpose and respect. Now the goal shifts. It's time to share your views, even on the most sensitive topics.
Right. The part many people dread.
We're talking about things like, I think you might be stealing from the company, or it feels like you micromanage me, or even, I'm worried you might be using drugs. Really tough stuff.
Extremely tough. The challenge is to share your perspective in a way that leads to genuine dialogue, not immediate defensiveness or shutdown.
It means staying in dialogue yourself and not violating respect or killing safety with accusations, even when your message is difficult. It's about being both candid and persuasive.
And the book offers another powerful acronym for this: State My Path. It consists of 5 distinct learnable skills for talking about these sensitive, high-stakes issues.
Okay, state. What does it stand for?
The first 3 letters are what to do. The last 2 are how to do it with finesse.
Yeah.
So S, share your facts.
Start with facts.
Yes. This is your non-negotiable starting point. You must retrace your path to action back to the objective, concrete evidence, the things you've actually seen, heard, or experienced directly. No interpretations yet.
Just the raw data.
Exactly. Facts are inherently the least controversial part of your message. For instance, yesterday you arrived at work at 8:20 a.m. is a fact. You were 20 minutes late is already a conclusion. Start with the indisputable.
Why start there?
Because facts lay the groundwork for your conclusions. They help others see how a reasonable, rational, and decent person, namely, you, could arrive at the perspective you're about to share. And crucially, when you share your facts, you acknowledge these are your observations, which implicitly makes space for others' facts and perspectives too.
So it's less confrontational.
Much less. Remember Anita suspecting her daughter Amber of taking money. She doesn't start with, "Did you steal my money?" She starts with facts. "Amber, when I went to pay for groceries, I planned to use $40 I thought was in my wallet, but it wasn't there. I saw it yesterday. Then I remembered you asked for money last night, and you went out anyway." Just the observable sequence of events.
Okay, S is share facts. What's T?
T, tell your story. Once you've laid out the facts, you've earned the right, so to speak, to share your interpretation or conclusion based on those facts.
The story that explains the facts from your perspective.
Exactly. But do not start with your story. That can unnecessarily surprise or insult others and kill safety immediately. The story is necessary because facts alone may not convey the severity or the implications.
Right, the facts might be neutral, but the implication isn't.
Like saying those prototypes are proprietary property isn't as impactful or clear as, "I was wondering what those proprietary prototypes are doing in your backpack. It looks like you're taking them home. Is that what's going on here?" The story adds the necessary meaning and concern.
Okay. This takes some confidence, though, right? To share a potentially negative conclusion.
It absolutely does. That confidence comes from knowing you've done your homework, you have the facts behind your story, and recognizing you're drawing a reasonable, rational, and decent conclusion, not just jumping to blame. And a key tip: if you've let problems simmer, avoid piling on an arsenal of unflattering conclusions. Work on your own villain story first, from the Master My Stories part, to focus on the single most important story you need to share right now.
Don't overwhelm them.
Right. And as you share your story, watch carefully for signs of defensiveness. If safety starts to deteriorate, pause, step out of the content, use contrasting to rebuild safety, then step back in. You're not apologizing for your views, just clarifying your positive intent.
Use the Goldilocks test here, too. Not too hard, not too soft.
Exactly. Find the story that's just right, neither understated nor overstated. Like, "It appears to me that you're taking this home for your own use." Is that right?
Yeah.
Versus the accusatory, "How come you ripped us off?" Or, "I don't think you're intending this, but I'm beginning to feel rejected." Versus the attacking, "If you don't find a way to pick up the frequency, I'm walking."
Got it. Share facts. Tell story. What's A?
A, ask for others' paths. Once you've shared your facts and your interpretation, your story, you must genuinely invite the other person to share their observations and their stories.
Make it a two-way street.
Absolutely essential. Make it explicitly clear that you want to hear their perspective, no matter how controversial or different it might be from yours. This is crucial for testing the accuracy of your own views and truly expanding that shared pool of meaning. You might be missing something vital.
Okay, STA. The last 2 are the how. What's the next T?
T, talk tentatively. This is about the language you use. It means phrasing your conclusions in a way that signals they are not absolute facts, but rather your interpretations, your best guess, based on the data you have.
How do you do that?
Use softening phrases like, "I'm wondering if, perhaps." It appears to me that my take on this is, "I'm beginning to conclude." Based on what I saw, it's leading me to believe.
Why is tentative language so important?
Because it's humble. It actually demonstrates confidence. You've done your homework, but you're secure enough to be open to being wrong. And it significantly reduces defensiveness in the other person. It keeps the door wide open for dialogue instead of slamming it shut with certainty.
It invites them in rather than pushing them away.
Perfectly said. And the final letter, E.
E is for?
E. Encourage testing. Your willingness to genuinely encourage others to challenge your view, to poke holes in your story, is the ultimate proof that you truly seek dialogue, not just to win a debate or impose your view.
This sounds hard. Encourage them to disagree with you.
It can feel counterintuitive, but it's incredibly powerful for building safety and trust. The authors put it brilliantly. You can argue as vigorously as you want for your point of view, provided you're even more vigorous about encouraging others to disprove it.
Wow. Okay. How do you encourage testing?
Your invitation must be sincere, not a veiled threat like, well, nobody disagrees with that, do they? Use genuine phrases like, I really want to hear from everyone on this, or what problems could this decision cause us that I'm not seeing, or does anyone see it differently?
What if they're still hesitant?
Then you can even play devil's advocate with your own view. Maybe I'm wrong here. What if the opposite is true? What if I'm missing something? You have to encourage testing until your positive motive for dialogue is truly obvious, especially if you're in a position of authority where people might naturally be hesitant to critique you.
Okay, let's circle back to Anita and the missing money to see state in action.
Right. Anita applies state beautifully. She shares the facts first. Money missing, saw it yesterday, Amber asked for money, went out anyway. Then she tentatively tells her story. Obviously, one possibility is that you took the money. She immediately asked for Amber's path. Did you?
And Amber hesitates.
Right. So Anita doesn't push harder. She notices the lack of safety and steps out to rebuild it using contrasting and reinforcing mutual respect. Amber, honey, I know you're a good kid and I don't want to jump to hurtful conclusions. I do want us to be able to talk about things, even hard things, honestly and openly, even when one of us has messed up. She also talks tentatively and encourages testing by asking Amber for her perspective.
And that created enough safety.
It did. It created just enough safety for Amber to admit taking the money with the intention of returning it. And because safety was there, the conversation then moved productively beyond the theft itself to the deeper pressures Amber was facing, ultimately strengthening their relationship rather than destroying it.
It really shows the incredible power of approaching sensitive topics with both candor and care, using these specific skills.
It's a game changer.
Now let's flip the script. You've done your part, you've prepared internally, you've chosen the right topic, mastered your stories, established safety, skillfully used State My Path to share your perspective. But what if the other person still goes to silence or violence?
Yeah, that happens, right? Despite your best efforts, it's tempting in that moment to get really frustrated, or maybe even to join them in their unproductive behavior, get defensive yourself, or shut down too.
So what's the goal when they are the ones losing it?
The goal is to make it genuinely safer for them to share their full meaning. Because remember, their silence or violence fundamentally stems from them feeling vulnerable or unsafe. You can't force them into dialogue, but you can take powerful steps to make it more appealing and less threatening for them to share their path.
Okay, how do we do that? What's the first step?
First, you must start with heart. Get ready to listen. This sounds simple, but it's crucial.
What does that involve?
It means, one, you must be sincere. When you invite others to open up, you must genuinely mean it. Avoid those superficial inquiries like, how are you today? If you don't actually want a real answer. As the authors put it, when you ask people to open up, be prepared to listen. Don't ask if you're not ready to hear it.
Okay, be sincere. Two,
you need to be curious. This is the counterintuitive magic. At the very moment when most people become furious because someone is yelling at them or shutting down completely, you need to consciously choose to become curious.
Yeah.
Ask yourself, why would a reasonable person be acting this way?
Instead of getting defensive, get curious.
Exactly. This curiosity is the key to getting to the underlying truth behind their outburst or withdrawal. And third, stay curious. Avoid immediately forming villain stories about their critical stories just because they sound negative or accusatory. Don't assume malice or flawed character. Maybe they have a point you haven't seen. Don't dismiss a patient's concerns as picky just because they read an article online. Try to understand their fear or confusion.
So sincerity, curiosity, stay curious, then what?
Then the core idea is to encourage others to retrace their path to action. Remember that. See here, tell story, feel act. When others are already in silence or violence, the act part, you're essentially entering their path to action already in progress. You're seeing their action, the outburst or the withdrawal, but you've missed the entire setup, their underlying facts, and the story they told themselves based on those facts.
You only see the end result.
Exactly. As the book wisely says, every sentence has a history. Your goal is to gently help them move backward from their emotions and actions, feel act, to their conclusions, their story, and then crucially, back to their observations, the facts they saw or heard.
Why is that helpful?
Because it helps you curb your own defensive reaction by understanding where they're coming from, and it gets to the actual root cause of their behavior rather than just reacting to the symptom.
Okay, how do we help them retrace their path? What are the tools?
The book provides 4 powerful listening tools, specifically designed to encourage others to share their path to action, especially when safety is low. They call it the inquiry skills, AMPP.
AMPP. Okay, A is for
8. Ask. Start with genuine interest, using simple, open-ended questions that invite them to share their perspective. Things like, what's going on? Can you help me understand how you see it? What happened from your point of view?
Just open the door, M.
M. Mirror. This is where you describe their nonverbal behavior or their tone of voice that indicates their feelings, but without interpreting or judging those feelings.
Like reflecting what you see.
Exactly. You might say, you seem upset. Or you say you're okay, but I notice you're speaking very quietly. Or the way you said that and how quiet everyone else is being makes me wonder if there's more to it. This simply acknowledges their apparent emotion and creates safety by showing you're noticing them.
Okay, ask. Mirror. First, P.
P. Paraphrase.
Yeah.
This is where you restate what you think you've heard the other person say, but in your own words. This does 2 things. It confirms your understanding, or corrects it, and it shows them you've genuinely listened and are trying to get it right.
Like, okay, so if I heard you right, you're saying that you felt blindsided by the decision. Is that accurate?
Perfect. It shows respect and clarifies the message. And the second P.
The last P in AMPP.
P prime. This is a more advanced technique, best used when they are still reluctant to open up, even after you've asked, mirrored, and paraphrased. Priming is where you make your best educated guess at what they might be thinking or feeling.
Take a stab at it.
Exactly. It's a powerful, high-risk, high-reward technique to jumpstart the dialogue if it's stalled. You might say, okay, I'm sensing that there's something else here. Let me take a stab at something. Are you worried that if this project fails, it'll reflect badly on your performance review?
Why is it high risk?
Because if your guess is way off, it could feel like you're putting words in their mouth. But if it's close, it often gives them the opening they need to say, well, not exactly that, but, and then share the real issue. It shows you're really trying to understand.
Got it. AMPP. Ask, mirror, paraphrase, prime. Anything else to keep in mind when using these?
Yes, a crucial point. Don't push too hard. If your attempts to draw them out start to feel like pestering or prying, it's time to back off. You risk violating mutual purpose and respect, making things worse.
So know when to stop probing.
Right. Instead, you might gracefully exit the conversation for a moment. Maybe this isn't the best time. Or pivot and directly ask what they want to see happen, shifting the focus towards constructive problem solving rather than just exploring feelings.
Okay, let's look at Sanjay's team example again. How did he use AMTP?
Right. So Sanjay's team is quiet about project risks. Then Andrea bursts out, blaming Sanj, calling the project a train ride to disaster land. Sanj feels frustrated initially.
Understandably.
But he pauses, asks himself, what do I really want here? He wants project success, the team's honest input, openness. He gets his heart right first. Then he skillfully uses AMPP. Faced with initial silence after Andrea's outburst, Sanj uses mirror. The way you say that, Andrea, and how quiet everyone else is being makes me wonder if you do trust me. And ask, I'd really like to know if there is something about me or the way I'm managing that's making that hard.
Okay, mirror and ask.
He gets more silence than just general concerns about pressure and jobs being at risk. So Sanj uses paraphrase. Okay, it sounds like maybe you think your jobs are at risk if this project fails. Is that it?
Trying to confirm the core fear.
Right. But he senses there's still something deeper, something unsaid, so he uses a powerful prime. I can appreciate that concern, but I am wondering if there is something more going on here. Let me take a stab at something. I've heard a half-dozen references to me as Singapore Sanj. Are you worried that because I was put on this project by corporate that I'm here evaluating you or something?
Wow, that's direct. Addressing the elephant in the room.
Exactly. This strategic priming directly addresses the deeper, unspoken fears of the team related to his role and origin. And it works. It leads to a crucial shift where the conversation goes to the real issues, and they can finally start talking honestly about the project risks.
That's a masterful use of those skills. Okay, so you've successfully used AMPP, they've shared their path. What if you find yourself genuinely disagreeing with some of their facts or their story?
Great question. This happens all the time. Just because you understand their path doesn't mean you agree with it. The book offers a simple but effective framework for responding constructively when you disagree. Remember your ABCs.
ABCs. Okay, A?
A, agree. First, find any part of what the other person said that you do agree with and say so immediately and genuinely. Don't turn agreement into argument by nitpicking or looking for subtle differences to debate. Often people are closer than they realize.
And the common ground first.
Yeah.
B.
B, build. If the other person has presented information that you agree with but feel is incomplete, agree with the parts you concur with, and then respectfully add the missing pieces or additional context. Instead of a dismissive, wrong, you forgot, try something like, absolutely, I agree with that point. And in addition to that, I also noticed that you're building on their contribution, not tearing it down.
Agree, then add. Okay, C.
C. Compare. When you differ significantly with the other person's view, maybe you have different facts or a totally different story, do not suggest they are wrong. That just triggers defensiveness again.
So what do you do?
Instead, present your view as simply a different perspective or a different data stream. Invite a comparison. You might say, that's interesting. My data stream seems to be telling a different story. Can I share how I saw it? Then use your state skills. Share facts, tell story, ask for their path, talk tentatively, encourage testing to share your view respectfully. The goal isn't to prove them wrong, but to work together to explore and explain the differences in your paths.
Like the sibling discussion example about caring for their mother, they paraphrase to confirm understanding, then compare their different perspectives on contributions without accusing.
Exactly. This is where it gets really interesting. It's about understanding that differences don't have to lead to division or arguments. By using agree, build, and compare, we can find common ground, fill in the blanks together, or at least respectfully compare our unique perspectives to enrich that shared pool of meaning and find a way forward.
It turns potential conflict into collaborative exploration.
That's the goal.
Okay, we've covered how to speak up and how to listen when others speak up. But some of the most crucial and honestly most painful conversations are when others tell you unpleasant things about yourself.
Ah, yes, receiving feedback.
Yeah.
Especially when it's delivered poorly.
The book calls it being feed-smacked. It's that moment when someone delivers a verbal wallop that just shatters your psychological footing, maybe leaving scars that can last for decades.
It can be incredibly painful. People can remember word-for-word insults from decades ago. Things like, you are an evil person, you are a thief, you are scum. Or maybe something seemingly milder, but just as cutting, like Carmen's story in the book, hearing, you should be more like your sister Linda.
Oof. Yeah, or who would even hire you? Things that just stick with you.
And what's so striking, as the authors point out, is that neither the actual content of the feedback nor the way it was delivered truly predicts the magnitude of the harm it causes.
Really, it's not just about how mean they were.
Not entirely. It's not just what is said, but how we react internally that determines its power over us and the lasting damage it might do.
Okay, that's a crucial distinction.
The book shares these fascinating and really counterintuitive insights from the Other Side Academy, TOSA, that unique, self-reliant community in Salt Lake City for former felons and addicts.
Right, the alternative to prison you mentioned.
Exactly. A core practice at TOSA involves something they call games. Students sit in groups of 20 and give each other completely unvarnished feedback.
Wow. Unvarnished sounds.
Intense.
Extremely.
The core belief there is that relentless exposure to truth is the best path to empathy, growth, and happiness. And there's, let's say, little emphasis placed on diplomatic delivery. It can be brutal.
So how do people handle that?
Well, older students advise the newcomers, just listen, then put it all in a bag and take it to your pillow tonight. There you could decide what is gold and what is crap.
Filter it later, basically.
Right. Now, the authors make it crystal clear. This blunt approach is unique to TOSA's specific population and setting. It absolutely does not excuse us from our responsibility to deliver feedback respectfully using the skills we've already discussed.
Okay, important clarification.
But TOSA offers profound lessons on receiving feedback however it's delivered.
What's the key lesson?
The revelation is powerful. Newer students initially react just like anyone else. They withdraw, deny, or lash out, defensively. But they quickly learn, through sheer necessity and repetition, to let others say whatever they want to say, however they want to say it. They learn to listen without immediate defense. And in doing so, they discover something truly liberating. They are the only sure source of their own sense of safety and worth. Their inner sense of self isn't dictated by external opinions, no matter how harsh.
That realization that they control their own value must be incredibly empowering.
Totally. It's described as liberating. This leads directly to the book's profound pen metaphor.
The pen metaphor.
Your pen is your inherent power to define your own worth, to write your own story about yourself. We are all born with it. Babies don't lie awake fretting over others' opinions.
True.
But as we grow up, we often unconsciously hand our pen over to others. The critical shift happens when we move from simply enjoying others' approval to actively needing it for our fundamental sense of self-worth.
Basing our value on external validation.
Exactly. When others hold our pen, their opinions literally control our emotional well-being, making us fundamentally insecure. The authors put it starkly. If you live by the compliment, you'll die by the criticism.
Wow, okay. So why does negative feedback hurt so much when others hold our pen?
Because it directly threatens two fundamental psychological needs. First, our need for safety.
Safety. How does criticism threaten safety?
We often unconsciously equate social approval with safety and disapproval with danger of rejection, isolation, loss of status or resources. This can lead to disproportionate emotional reactions like panic or rage because we underestimate our actual capacity to protect ourselves and survive disapproval. As the book says, you don't get angry when you're confident, you get angry when you're scared.
Interesting. Fear masquerading as anger. Okay, safety is one need. What's the other?
The second is our need for worth, our deep sense of self-respect, self-regard, and self-confidence. If we have an underlying worry that we are somehow inadequate, unlovable, or fundamentally worthless, then others' negative opinions become intensely threatening. Feedback feels like an audit of our worth, and failing that audit feels catastrophic, but only if we've surrendered our pen.
So the pain comes from letting others define our safety and worth. How do we reclaim that pen? How do we build that resilience?
The book offers the Feedback Cure, another helpful acronym, CURE. These are 4 powerful tools that TOSA students implicitly learn and that anyone can consciously use to reclaim their pen and become beneficiaries, not victims, of feedback, no matter how clumsily it's delivered.
CURE. Okay, C is for.
C, collect yourself. This is about managing your immediate physiological and psychological reaction. First, take deep breaths. It's a simple but powerful physical signal to your body that you are safe and don't need to prepare for physical defense. Calm the adrenaline.
Okay, breathe. What else for collect?
Practice mindfulness by consciously identifying and naming your specific feelings. Example, I feel hurt, I feel scared, I feel embarrassed, I feel ashamed. Naming them creates that crucial daylight between you and the emotion, giving you more power over it instead of being consumed by it. Revisit the skills from master my stories to critique and consciously change the negative narratives fueling your painful emotions. And crucially, connect with soothing truths. Consciously remind yourself of beliefs that affirm your inherent worth and safety, independent of this feedback.
Like an affirmation.
Yes. The authors share Marlon's example. I have infinite, intrinsic, and eternal worth. Neither my past nor others' opinions define me. My worth is about my potential and my choices. Find what resonates for you.
Collect yourself. Got it.
Understand. Shift your focus from immediate judgment or defense to genuine curiosity about the feedback giver's perspective. Actively try to separate the objective facts they might be pointing to from their subjective story or interpretation. Try to understand their path. Why might a reasonable, rational, and decent person say what they're saying? Don't immediately assume malice. Try to understand their viewpoint, even if you disagree.
Get curious about their perspective.
R, rethink. Actively challenge your own initial defensive story about the feedback. Reframe it into a more accurate, complete, and ultimately more helpful interpretation, one that allows you to learn or respond constructively, rather than just defensively protecting your ego. Is there a grain of truth here I can use?
Find the learning. Reframe the story. And E.
E, engage. Only after you've collected yourself, sought to understand, and rethought your initial reaction, can you now engage in dialogue about the feedback from a place of strength, resilience, and genuine curiosity, rather than reacting defensively or shutting down. Now you can use your dialogue skills effectively.
QRE, collect, understand, rethink, engage. It's a process for handling that initial impact.
Exactly. And the transformation of Marlon, that 55-year-old former junkie at TOSA, who participated in 300 games over 3 years, is a truly compelling example.
What happened to him?
He started out, as the book says, emotionally brittle. The gains were relentless. But over time, through consciously practicing these principles, he developed this easy confidence, reconciled with his estranged family, and found a profound inner peace. Why? Because he learned that how he responded to feedback was far more important than the feedback itself. He learned to be this steward of his own safety and worth. He retook his pen.
Wow, that's powerful.
It really shows us that the misery we often feel from feed-smacking isn't inevitable. It's actually a symptom of a deeper problem, the location of our pen. By reclaiming it, we don't just get better at handling tough feedback in crucial conversations. We cultivate a fundamental peace and resilience that equips us for all of life's challenges.
It transforms how we engage with the world, not just in specific conversations.
Absolutely. It's about building that inner security.
Okay, we've journeyed through the inner work, the skills for speaking up, listening, and even receiving tough feedback. We've had the conversation. We've done the hard work of filling that shared pool with meaning. Now, the crucial final part. How do we make absolutely sure all that hard work actually translates into tangible action and concrete results?
Right, because dialogue without action is often just, we'll talk. This part is about knowing how to decide and, crucially, making sure those decisions actually stick.
And the book highlights a critical distinction here, right, between dialogue and decision-making.
Yes, absolutely critical. Dialogue is the process for getting all the relevant meaning into the shared pool. Decision-making is a separate process that happens after the pool is sufficiently full. Violating this distinction, maybe conflating discussion with decision, often leads to violated expectations and deep frustration down the line. People think they agreed on something when they only discussed it.
Okay, so how do we handle the decision part properly?
The first crucial step is to explicitly decide how to decide. Before you make the decision, you agree on the method you'll use.
Decide how to decide. Meta.
A little, but essential. If you're the boss or a parent, if the line of authority is clear, you generally decide which method of decision-making to use for a particular issue. It's part of your leadership or parental responsibility.
Makes sense. VPs don't ask hourly employees to decide pricing strategy?
Exactly. Or parents don't ask small children to set their own bedtimes, usually. The key is discerning which decisions genuinely warrant involvement from others and which don't. However, if the line of authority is unclear, or if your peers working together,
Then what?
then you must use your best dialogue skills to jointly decide how to decide. Talk about the decision-making process itself. For example, a parent and a school teacher discussing whether to hold a child back a year. Instead of battling over the decision itself, they should first discuss openly how the final choice will be made and who needs to be involved in that choice.
Okay, so agree on the process first. What are the different ways to decide?
The book outlines 4 common methods of decision-making. These represent increasing degrees of involvement, generally offering increased commitment from those involved, but also, often, decreased efficiency. It's a trade-off.
Okay, what's the first method?
The first is command. Decisions are made with no involvement from others.
One person decides.
Right. This could be autonomous decisions clearly within your area of responsibility, like you deciding to write an email, or it could be external forces placing demands, like customers setting prices or government agencies mandating standards. It can also be delegating low-stakes issues to trusted others. Most simple daily decisions are command decisions made for efficiency.
Okay, command. Next.
Second is consult. Here, the decision-maker invites others to influence them before they make the final choice. They gather input, retain the authority to decide.
So you ask for opinions, but you still make the call.
Exactly. This is a very efficient way to gather diverse ideas, gain support, and learn without getting excessively bogged down in endless debate. Wise leaders, parents, and couples often use this method effectively.
Okay, command, consult. Third.
Third is vote. Decisions are made by majority rule. Simple majority wins.
Democratic approach.
Yes. It's efficient for gaining group commitment when there are multiple reasonable options and you just need to move forward. However, its limitation is that it's not usually suitable for high-stakes or complex issues where total unity and commitment are required because the minority who voted against the decision may not be genuinely committed to implementing it.
Right, the losers might drag their feet. Okay, fourth method.
The fourth and most involved is consensus. Here, you talk and listen until everyone honestly agrees to support one decision.
Everyone has to agree. That sounds long.
It can be very long. But it produces tremendous unity and often exceptionally high-quality decisions because everyone's perspective is truly heard and integrated. However, because it's so time-consuming, it should only be used for two types of situations. One, genuinely high-stakes and complex issues where the best possible decision is critical. Or two, issues where everyone absolutely must support the final choice for it to succeed. For example, decisions about core product safety or fundamental company values. The authors warn it can be a frustrating curse if misapplied to issues that don't warrant that level of investment.
B. Choose wisely when to use consensus. Okay, command, consult, vote, consensus. How do you pick the best method for a given situation?
To select the right method, the book suggests asking four important questions. First, who cares? Determine who genuinely wants to be involved and who will be significantly affected by the decision. These are your prime candidates for involvement. Crucially, avoid involving those who don't genuinely care. It just wastes time.
Okay, involve the stakeholders. Second question.
Second, who knows? Identify who possesses the expertise, the knowledge, the relevant information necessary to make the best quality decision. Actively encourage these individuals to participate. Conversely, avoid involving people who contribute no new information or expertise.
Involve the experts. Third.
Third, who must agree. Consider whose cooperation, authority, or active influence will be critical for successfully implementing the decision. You absolutely must involve these people, ideally early, to avoid surprising them later and facing resistance or sabotage.
Involve the implementers and authorizers. Okay, fourth question.
Fourth, how many people is it worth involving? Considering the answers to the first three questions, the goal is always to involve the fewest number of people possible while still ensuring high decision quality and gaining the necessary support for successful implementation. Don't make the group larger than it needs to be.
Maximize quality and buy-in. Minimize inefficiency. Got it.
And once you've used these questions to choose the decision-making method, what's the next critical step?
You have to tell everyone.
Bingo. You absolutely must say it out loud. Explicitly state the chosen method to everyone involved before the discussion begins.
Why is that so important?
Because it prevents that common frustrating misconception where people assume discussion automatically means consensus.
Managing expectations.
Exactly. The book gives that example of a manager who convenes a meeting to discuss new product features. The team dives in, assuming it's a consensus process, but the manager intended it to be a consult decision all along. When he later makes the final choice, incorporating only some of their ideas, the team feels ignored and frustrated.
Because the process wasn't clear up front.
Right. This is entirely avoided if he simply says at the beginning, okay, team, your input is critical here as we discuss these features, and please be aware this is a consult decision. I'll take all your valuable input, along with input from marketing and sales, and then I'll make the final decision. Clarity prevents confusion and resentment.
Okay, decide how to decide, choose the method wisely, announce it clearly. Now the decision is made. How do we ensure it actually leads to results?
This is where the follow-through comes in. Once a decision is made, you need to ensure clear accountability by clarifying four elements. The book calls this the WWF for action and results. This framework is crucial for both professional projects and personal commitments.
WWF. Okay, first WW.
W who? Assign a specific single person responsible for each action item or task. Vague assignments like, we need to look into this, lead to inaction. Everybody's business is nobody's business.
So name names.
Yes. If multiple people are involved in a task, appoint one clear responsible party. As the book bluntly puts it, there is no we when it comes to assignments. We usually means not me. Assign it to an individual.
Okay, who? Second W.
W does what? Spell out the exact deliverables and any boundary conditions clearly and specifically. Fuzzy expectations inevitably lead to disappointment.
Be crystal clear on the task.
Absolutely. The book cites Howard Hughes's ambitious steam car project, failing partly due to vague direction. A set designer's work was unusable because the expectations weren't concrete. Use contrasting here, too, to clarify what you don't want as well as what you do want. Example, don't use furniture that would be unfamiliar to Fortune 500 employees, and do make it resemble the typical looks in these pictures.
Specificity is key.
Who does what? Third W.
W by when. Set clear, specific deadlines. Assignments without deadlines, the book warns, are far better at producing guilt than stimulating action. Or, put another way, goals without deadlines aren't goals. They're merely directions. Things drift without a deadline.
Who does what by when?
Okay.
Makes sense. And the F.
F, how will you follow up? Agree explicitly on the method and frequency of follow-up. This creates essential accountability. It doesn't have to be heavy-handed micromanagement.
It can be a simple check-in email. a requirement for a full report, or maybe planned progress checks at key milestones. The point is, if you want people to feel accountable, you must give them an opportunity to account. The follow-up plan closes the loop.
Who does what by when and how to follow up? WWWF. Can you use this in personal life without sounding like a project manager?
Absolutely. You can apply WWWF principles to one-on-one or personal situations without sounding overly bureaucratic. The key is the spirit, not necessarily formal language.
How?
First, summarize for understanding at the end of the conversation to ensure both parties are truly on the same page. Okay, I just want to recap what we talked about to make sure I have it all right. Second, clearly identify an action or commitment for each person. Okay, so in terms of my commitments, I'll plan to, and you mentioned you would. And finally, plan to follow up. Establish a simple plan to check in. Emphasize check in, not check up. To catch any issues early and ensure things stay on track. Maybe something like, how about I circle back next week for a quick check? Just to make sure that after we've had some time to sit with this, everything still seems okay and on track for both of us. It's about ensuring that dialogue truly leads to lasting change and understanding, not just temporary agreement.
That makes sense. It closes the loop respectfully. #tag7. Addressing tough cases. Yeah, but.
Now, we've covered a lot of ground, a lot of skills, but inevitably people run into situations that feel different, exceptionally difficult. This raises the important yeah, but questions.
Right. Yeah, but what if?
Exactly. What if the problem feels so ingrained, so personal, or so politically charged that these skills, as powerful as they are, still seem impossible to apply in my specific context? The final part of the book addresses some of these common hurdles and offers specific advice for navigating these truly challenging situations.
Okay, let's tackle some yeah buts. What's the first one? #tag 7.1. Sexual or other harassment. This is undoubtedly one of the toughest yeah buts. Dealing with potential harassment.
Absolutely. The danger point here is often when the comments or gestures are offensive but subtle, maybe ambiguous, it makes it unclear if HR can even help yet, and it can lead to the person feeling powerless, like the offender holds all the cards.
And the natural inclination might be
to tell a really potent villain story internally about the offender, which, as we know, escalates your own negative emotions and can potentially lead to an abrasive, counterproductive approach when you finally do speak up, maybe making things worse or harder to prove.
So what's the recommended approach, especially for those subtler situations?
The book argues that most such problems, especially in their early stages, can often be resolved effectively if addressed privately, respectfully, and firmly, ideally before deep resentment builds up.
So use the dialogue skills first.
Yes. You can effectively use your state my path skills here. For example, if someone's subtle behavior consistently makes you uncomfortable, you might say something like,
Okay, how would that sound?
John, when I walk into your office, frequently your eyes move from my eyes downward toward my chest. And when I sit next to you at a computer to look at something, sometimes you put your arm around the back of my chair. I don't know that you're aware you're doing these things, so I thought I'd bring them up because they send a message that makes me uncomfortable. How do you see it?
Wow. That's direct, fact-based, share facts, explains the impact, tell story makes me uncomfortable, acknowledges he might be unaware, talk tentatively, and invites his perspective. Ask for path and courage testing.
Exactly. It uses the state skills to address the issue clearly, but non-accusingly. However, there's a crucial caveat here, and it's non-negotiable.
What's that?
If the behavior is clearly over the line, if it's overtly or intentionally sexually aggressive, or if that initial direct conversation doesn't immediately stop the behavior, you must contact HR or the appropriate authorities immediately. Don't hesitate. Your rights and safety must be protected. Dialogue has its limits when safety is compromised.
Got it. Dialogue first for subtlety, if safe. Escalate immediately, if not. ###7.2. Failed trust. Okay, another huge yeah, but what if I just don't trust the person at all? How can I have a crucial conversation then?
Yeah, trust is foundational. The danger point here is that people often assume trust is an all or nothing proposition. Either you trust someone completely or you don't trust them at all.
Like it's a switch, on or off.
Right. This black and white thinking puts immense, often unrealistic pressure on the concept of trust. It leads to things like a teenager asking defensively, "What? Don't you trust me?" when you ask them to be home by curfew.
Yeah. So how should we think about trust?
The book clarifies that trust is usually offered in degrees and is very topic specific. You might trust someone with your kids, but not your finances.
Yeah, true.
And trust generally comes in two flavors. Trust in someone's motive. Do they want to do the right thing? And trust in their ability. Are they capable of doing the right thing even if they want to?
Motive and ability, that's a helpful distinction.
Very. If someone repeatedly misses deadlines, for instance, the core problem might not be a bad motive. They might genuinely want to succeed, but perhaps a lack of ability, maybe poor time management skills, or unclear expectations about their capability.
So diagnosing the trust issue correctly, motive or ability, is key.
Exactly. And the crucial insight here is this. Instead of acting out your expectations of distrust, for example, secretly checking their work constantly or asking multiple people to do the same task because you don't fully trust one person to do it well.
Which just breeds resentment.
Right. Instead, you must consciously talk out your expectations and concerns about trust. Have a direct conversation about the specific responsibility, the specific area where trust is shaky, is it motive ability, and agree on ways to rebuild it, perhaps through more frequent check-ins or early progress reports.
So address the trust issue directly using dialogue skills.
Yes. The book's advice is clear. Stop acting out your expectations that others won't take initiative or can't be trusted. Instead, talk your expectations out and come to agreements that place the responsibility on the team members while giving you information early enough that you aren't left high and dry if they falter. Build mechanisms for verification. Don't just silently distrust.
Talk it out, don't act it out. Hashtag 7.3. Choosing what and if. Deeper dive on accountability from other excerpts. Let's circle back and maybe deepen that initial concept of choosing the right topic, specifically for accountability issues. It's not just about what happened, but really discerning which infraction to address and sometimes whether to address it at all.
Right. This revisits the CPR framework with an accountability lens. Remember the Groundhog Day problem?
Yeah, having the same conversation over and over.
When you're constantly discussing the same exact issue with someone like that front desk clerk who's repeatedly late, it's a huge red flag that you're likely only dealing with the surface content, the single latest event, and completely missing the deeper pattern or relationship issue.
You're pulling the dandelion flower, not the root.
Exactly. Accountability experts, the book says, never live Groundhog Day. The first time the clerk is late, it's a content issue. Address the lateness. The second time, it's now become a pattern issue. Address the broken promise or emerging pattern. The third time, it's probably escalated to a relationship issue. Address the impact on trust, reliability, or maybe even perceived disrespect. You have to address the right level.
And your own emotional escalation is a clue too, right? If you're getting increasingly upset each time.
Absolutely. That mounting frustration is a clear internal sign you're probably having the wrong conversation, or that the perceived intention behind the behavior is becoming the real issue for you.
Like the realtor whose frustration with the late desk clerk wasn't just the lateness, but the feeling the clerk was taking advantage of our relationship because she was also a neighbor.
Precisely. The perceived intent became the core relationship issue, much bigger than just the tardiness itself.
So using CPR for accountability helps you pinpoint the correct level.
Exactly. First infraction, content. Address what just happened. Keep it focused, simple. Next infraction, pattern. Address what has been happening over time. Shift the focus explicitly to the repetition. And warning, it's easy for the other person to trip and suck you back into debating the content of the newest event. Stay disciplined and focus on the overall pattern. Continued infraction, relationship. Address what's happening to us, the impact on trust, respect, communication, and the relationship itself. This gets to the deepest root cause.
Okay, that clarifies the what, but what about the if? Do you always have to speak up about every violated expectation?
Great question. The book is clear. No, you need to consciously decide I have to speak up. Not every problem or minor infraction requires a full-blown crucial conversation. You need to weigh the consequences of speaking up versus staying silent.
How do you weigh that?
Sometimes it's genuinely better to expand your zone of acceptance. Just let minor issues go, especially if the consequences are truly low, or it's clearly a one-time event that's unlikely to recur.
Like your teenage son's temporary, maybe regrettable mohawk haircut if it's not truly harmful.
Perfect example. Or maybe a minor frustration with a one-time vendor you'll never work with again. Haranguing over every little thing might actually worsen the relationship more than the issue itself. Conversely, though, you might need to consciously shrink your zone of acceptance.
When things cross a line.
Right. When behavior clearly crosses an important boundary or significantly impacts something you value, like team morale, project success, or core values, then it's absolutely time to speak up, even if you've tolerated similar things before, like your boss's combative behavior and insults. Maybe you put up with it initially, but now it's undermining the team, so the zone shrinks and a conversation is needed.
What are the signs that you should be speaking up but maybe aren't, that your silence isn't actually serving you well?
The book points out several red flags. First, you're acting out your feelings anyway. You might think you're suffering silently, but your nonverbal behavior, your sighs, eye rolls, curt tone, avoidance, is already speaking volumes, usually in unhealthy, passive-aggressive ways that make things worse. Your silence isn't really silent.
Ouch. Guilty as charged sometimes.
Second, your conscience is nagging you. That persistent internal prodding, that feeling of, I really should say something, is often a reliable sign your silence isn't warranted and you know it deep down.
Listen to that inner voice.
Third, you're downplaying the cost of not taking action, while exaggerating the dangers of speaking up. Under stress, we often lose all sense of reality. We inflate horrific possibilities of speaking up, like instantly getting fired for reasonable feedback, while minimizing the actual ongoing costs of silence, like festering resentment, declining performance, damaged relationships, or even health impacts. We have to challenge this fear-driven distortion.
Fear makes mountains out of molehills.
It really does. Think of the Milgram experiments. Social pressure and fear can compel people to act against their better judgment, including remaining silent when they know they shouldn't. And fourth, you're telling yourself you're helpless. You fall into that helpless story. There's nothing I can do, or have you ever tried to talk to that guy? He's a maniac. This often stems from underestimating your own accountability skills and your power to influence the situation through dialogue.
So challenge those helpless feelings. Now, are there times when it is genuinely better to remain silent?
Yes, the book acknowledges this. Sometimes silence, or at least delaying the conversation, is the wisest course. This might be true if the social system or the organizational culture genuinely won't support your effort, making it futile or even dangerous, or if accountability is wildly unpredictable and punitive in your environment. In those rare cases, you might need to focus on changing the system or finding allies first.
Okay. But what if you are committed to speaking up, but you know you're upholding a standard that differs from the current norm, like a new leader entering a very lax team environment?
That's a great scenario. If you need to hold people accountable to a standard that's new or different from what they're used to, you must differentiate yourself. Don't just start enforcing the new standard abruptly.
How do you differentiate yourself?
Issue a fair warning. Reset expectations clearly and respectfully before you start holding people accountable to the new standard. Do it without being smug or having that nanner attitude, mocking their previous, less rigid standards.
Give people a heads up.
Exactly. The book uses the example of Kerry, a new Coast Guard officer who learned his peers routinely ignored certain regulations. Instead of ambushing them during inspections, he simply let it be known beforehand that he would be checking those specific posts according to the regulations. This avoided conflict, clearly reset expectations, and allowed him to gain compliance respectfully. It's about being clear, fair, and respectful in your intentions, even when, maybe especially when standards need to change.
That makes perfect sense. Be clear about the new rules of the game before you start calling penalties.
Yeah.
Hashtag outro. Wow. What a truly deep dive. We've seriously unpacked the blueprint for transforming those moments, those crucial conversations that so often lead to regret or resentment or just getting stuck, into powerful opportunities for growth, for understanding, and for real progress in pretty much every part of your life.
It's a comprehensive skill set, isn't it?
Totally. From recognizing their fundamental nature and those psychological traps that ensnare us, through all that essential inner work of clarifying our purpose and mastering our own stories. The practical outward skills of creating safety, speaking persuasively without being abrasive, and listening deeply to truly understand the other person's path.
And then handling feedback and making sure it all leads to action.
Exactly. Concluding with the importance of handling that tough feedback with resilience by retaking our pen and ensuring that all this hard-won dialogue actually leads to concrete action and real results using WWF. It's a full life cycle.
The real power here, I think, is truly profound. It's the realization that you can actively influence your emotions. You can reframe your stories. And you can deliberately design conversations for mutual benefit. These aren't just innate talents or fixed personality traits you either have or don't.
Right, they're learnable skills.
Absolutely learnable skills that require consistent practice, deep self-awareness, and honestly, a willingness to courageously engage even when it feels uncomfortable.
Because it often does feel uncomfortable.
It does. But this isn't just about getting through tough talks without disaster. It's about fundamentally making your world and the world around you work better for everyone involved by genuinely filling that shared pool of meaning.
It creates this powerful ripple effect, doesn't it? Impacting personal relationships, professional success, even, as you mentioned, physical health.
It truly does. It changes how you navigate conflict and connection across the board.
So, as you, our listeners, reflect on this deep dive into crucial conversations, maybe consider this. What crucial conversation are you currently avoiding in your life or work right now? And digging a bit deeper, what underlying, perhaps unexamined root issue, content, pattern, or relationship might that avoidance be trying to reveal?
And maybe more importantly, what's just one small intentional step you can take today, maybe even right after listening, to retake your pen, build your resilience, or begin to apply just one of these lessons? How can you tune that challenge into an opportunity for growth and connection?
A powerful question to end on, food for thought.